We then looked at typical locations commonly used by social realist films. They are usually very unglamorous locations, such as Warp's film This Is England, which is mainly filmed in Nottingham, in working class areas such as estates. But rom-com films, especially working title films, are usually set in London or the South, such as Notting Hill, or an idyllic little village like in The Holiday. This inspired us, as we chose bits of both, as our moorland shots are very realistic and brooding and unglamorous, whereas the shop scene is very glamorous. From costume, we found that social realist films, for example Sweet 16, commonly use chavvy clothes, for example tracksuits, or like in This Is England, they wore mod clothes, which is fitted with the era that it was set in. Whereas in rom-coms, again, they're more dressed in more glamorous clothes, and characters are stereotyped by their clothing as well. For example, Yorkshire people would be dressed in full tweed and would wear a flat cap. We then chose our target audience, which for us was 15 to 21. So we chose a youthful young audience, as we are in that target age, so therefore we would more clearly understand what people of our age would want to see. So we would understand this audience better than if we chose a younger or an older audience. We then did some genre research and asked people in our primary audience to watch clips of films that had influenced our film and had the same genre as our film, and asked if they recognised the film and if they would watch it, to see if this would appeal to them. This helped us to get a better understanding of what a youthful audience would want to see. And most people recognise the rom-com films rather than social realist films. The rom-com films were, for example, Pretty in Pink, The Breakfast Club, where as the social realist films was This Is England. And we also showed a clip from Submarine, which is a hybrid of both genres. We then did character research and got inspiration for our female protagonist from the Molly Ringwald character in Pretty in Pink. We also were inspired by the Ducky character, as he was quirky and crazy, and we wanted our male protagonist to also represent these characteristics. We took inspiration from the opening bedroom shots of Submarine, as they were quirky and featured unfamous artists and retro mise-en-scene. This created exposition of the character and made him seem a lot older than he was. We also wanted to create this effect in our film, so in pre-production we had to plan which mise-en-scene, props that we wanted to create this exposition of our character. I printed off about 30 pictures of obscure artists, and we found some retro furniture, for example a clock and a retro telephone. We gathered some books of quirky kind of artists and directors. For example, we had a Wes Anderson book. He's a quirky director, and we used this to create exposition of our character, that they were an individual and quirky. We did some research into shot types. Many films such as Submarine and American Horror Story use long establishing shots of scenery to set the scene and to clearly show the location, which both was set in Yorkshire. American Horror Story is set in Yorkshire, and Submarine was set in Wales. Whereas in rom-coms, the opening shots are more close-ups of the central protagonist, for example in Wild Child. The research into music. During the research into music, we found that Submarine used Alex Turner from the Arctic Monkeys, as the Arctic Monkeys were also signed by Warp X Music. All the clips were correctly named by the people that we asked, and everyone said they would watch every single clip, so that proved that our genre would appeal to a youthful audience. We then researched shot types. Many films such as Submarine and American Werewolf in London use long establishing shots of scenery to set the scene, whereas more rom-coms open with close-up shots of the central protagonist, for example in Wild Child. The research into music showed us that Submarine used Alex Turner from the Arctic Monkeys, as they had signed to Warp Music. We took one of the Arctic Monkeys' slow songs, and we had to plan where we would get it recorded, and we had to arrange with Connor from Music College in Leeds to record it for us. We organised practice recordings with him to make sure that he knew exactly what we wanted, and we also sent him examples of exactly what we wanted as well. So we used an acoustic guitar, which would signify the romantic genre. We looked into the titles from rom-coms. For example, You've Got Mail. We looked at the order of the titles and how they had phrased them. For example, they used the word starring and then the actor, produced by. This helped us plan for our titles that we would use. We then created a very detailed storyboard, call sheets for all shoots, and a screenplay. This was a step up from our prelim and Swede. We also planned locations this time because we had more than one. In our prelim in Swede there was only a few locations. This time we had a lot more, and they were further apart. We had to look into the time of day, so what kind of light that would affect the lighting. The weather could affect filming as well. We had to make sure all the cast could make the certain day. We originally asked Chantel to play Holly, but she couldn't make the shooting, so we had to recast her with Lucy. But again, Lucy couldn't make some of the shoots, so we had to recast her to Holly. This was very difficult, but due to giving ourselves enough time to be able to recast, this was possible, so we didn't affect filming. I planned the moorland shots, so it would be a sunny day but cloudy, to create the atmospheric shots that I wanted that were inspired by Submarine. To do this, I looked at the weather forecast and planned the days. I also made sure that it was in early morning, so that the clouds would be hiding the sunrise as well, to get that kind of effect. So I went about 9 o'clock to get the early morning sun. We started with enough time to reshoot if we needed to. So over a period of time, it was over a period of time, not just one day, as it was for the prelim and the Swede. But this was useful as we did have to reshoot the bad boy scene, so that gave us enough time to be able to do that. We planned different shot types beforehand using the We also planned different shot types before using the storyboards, so we had it all planned out. Before, in the prelim and the Swede, we just used random shot types, and this time we looked into what these different shot types and framing would signify to our audience. For example, a two-shot, which we used in the classroom scene, would signify a relationship, and in our classroom scene it signified a romantic relationship with these two. So that was a step up again. We planned the cast and costume in the classroom scene. We originally planned that people would bring their own uniform in, but this unfortunately didn't happen due to circumstances. But fortunately on the day we could buy some from school, so that didn't go to plan, but we figured it out and we worked around that. We organised for a drama class to come in and act as extras, to make the classroom scene seem more realistic, to create and reach realism as well. Some people costumes were smart, so the top button was done up, while others had their top button undone, and they're tied very short and scruffy. Some worked whilst others messed around, which signified the different personalities in the classroom and made it seem more realistic. We then created our own idents, which signified kind of what our production companies were about. We needed to have a moving image and the title of our ident and a sound effect. If you look at my question 6, I'll explain that further. During production, all shots were done on a tripod, so they weren't shaky. They took longer, but they looked more professional. It was a step up from before, as in the preliminary test and the Swede. They were very shaky. This helped to reduce the editing process, so we didn't have to edit out any shaky shots, and created more professional feel to it. We created a production schedule which helped with the organisation, so everyone knew which days we were shooting, which scenes we were shooting, so we knew exactly what props needed to be brought. We did a lot of practice shots. For example, me and Ben went up to the moors to film some scenery shots, and we learned how we wanted to frame them. So I knew for when I did it on Denton Moor. We found out that we didn't want any human elements in the moorland shots, for example roads and cars or litter, as it took away from the atmospheric feel of the shots, except for the house, which was indicated to be where Holly lived, showing that she lived in a rural area, which added to her quirky nature, as you wouldn't expect a younger person to live in a rural place. You would expect her to live in a busy city. We used many locations, but none were needed to be changed, luckily, due to weather. We took multiple shot takes, so we had more shot variety to help for a more interesting film, and as backup if we had any shaky shots. We also had many different angles and shot types, again to make it more interesting, and we took some cutaway shots. For example, in the bedroom scene, I took some close-up shots of mise-en-scene to use cutaway shots. This linked to cinematography, as we played around with the focus on the camera to create a short and long depth of field of focus. For example, with the candle, I focused in on the candle. It made an atmospheric feel to it. We all had individual roles stated in the production schedule, which helped with time management, so we could get filming done quicker and helped us to work well as a group. We also recorded ambient sound to add to the classroom scene to make it more realistic and to achieve realism. So if someone on camera looked like they were speaking, there would be sound to fit with that.